In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how I make these fluffy roses from blanket yarn.
This is Pauline for Not Fast Fashion.
If you like the written pattern with some photos and a crochet chart, you can grab that down below. Weight 6 yarn. I use Bernat blanket Ombre in Burgundy for the light pink and red flowers. And for the dark green stems, I use Bernat blanket in deep sea. And for the light green, I use Smokey green, also in Bernat blanket, but you can use any weight 6 chenille yarn that you like. Other materials, we're going to need a 6mm or J hook, a tapestry needle, scissors, a hot glue gun with hot glue, floral wire, 22 gauge, and 18 gauge for the stems. This is 15 inches long. Pliers and some optional stitch markers. So we're going to start with our rose petals and we're going to chain 39. To count your chains to check that you did them correctly, you kind of have to feel for them. So now that we have 39 chains, what we're going to do is establish our first row. So we're going to double crochet into the third chain from the hook. So you kind of have to just feel for it. So that's 1, 2, and 3. Insert your hook carefully, and then we're going to double crochet. So that's our first double crochet. Chain 1, skip 1, and then into this next space we're going to double crochet. So we're going to repeat chain 1, skip 1, double crochet 17 times until we reach the end of this row. So let's go ahead and do another one again. We're going to chain 1, kind of feel for the stitch. This just went into this chain right here. You can see how this is pulling up on this chain, and you're going to feel for the next space, which is adjacent to that, and insert our hook into there and double crochet, and that is our second repeat. So again, chain 1, feel for where you just double crocheted, notice that next chain, we're gonna skip that, and we're gonna double crochet into that next space. Alright, so what we're creating here is double crochets with chain 1 spaces. So I'll meet you at the end of all this. You should have a total of 19 double crochets and 18 chain 1 spaces. So we're not going to count this right here. I'm going to count the double crochets: 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 19. So I have the correct number of double crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So we have 18 chain 1 spaces, and these spaces right here are where we're going to work our petals. So what we're going to do now is turn our work over. So we're working our second row. So in the second row, we're going to start with chain 1 in our first chain 1 space, single crochet, double crochet, single crochet again into the space right here, and slip stitch into the front post of our DC, or in other words, front post slip stitch. So that creates our first inner petal. We're gonna repeat that 2 more times. So let me try this again a little bit slower. We're going to single crochet into this chain 1 space, double crochet again into this chain 1 space, we go single crochet into this chain 1 space again, and slip stitch this front post. And repeat that 1 more time. Okay, so that's our inner 3 petals, and you can see here that kind of creates a small texture with our front post slip stitches right here. That kind of causes these petals to come outward a bit. Now, for our middle petals, we're not going to continue that pattern. We're going to slightly alter it. We're going to do single crochet into our chain 1 space, then double crochet into that same space, and then we're going to single crochet into that same chain 1 space. And then to end this first repeat, we're going to insert our hook into the top of our double crochet and just slip stitch, and we're going to repeat that 9 times. So again, a little bit slower. I'm going to be working my stitches onto this space right here, our chain 1 space, single crochet, double crochet, single crochet, and then slip stitch on top of that double crochet. Okay, so we're going to want about 9 of these, or in other words, you can kind of mark off whatever our last 6 are for our outermost petals. So this is our 6 chain 1 spaces. You could just add a stitch marker there optionally if you'd like to just work on your petals without worrying about counting. So I'm going to meet you at the end of our 9 repeats. Okay, so we just reached our 9 repeats, so let's go ahead and count them real quick. This was our first 3, and then we start counting 3, 6, and 9. Now you can see that there's a slight difference between our first 3 inner petals and our next few petals. That just helps us create a little bit of dimension in our finished rows. Now for the last 6 petals, we're going to make them a little bit larger than the previous petals. So to do that, we're going to alter the pattern a tiny bit. So into this next chain 1 space, instead of doing single crochet, we're going to double crochet, triple crochet, double crochet again, and then slip stitch into the top of our double crochet. So you can see that creates a slightly larger petal. So let me do that again a little bit slower. We're going to double crochet into this chain 1 space, treble crochet, double crochet again. And then slip stitch to the top of this double crochet from the previous row. And then we're going to repeat until we have all of our petals. So 6 large petals in total. Okay, so for our last slip stitch, instead of working on the top of our DC right here, we're just going to insert our slip stitch between our last DC and our chain 2, and then we're going to cut the yarn with about a 6-inch tail to fasten off. This is what your finished rose petal row should look like. We have 3 inner petals, 9 middle petals, and then 6 larger petals at the end. Now that we have our rose petals done, we're going to start assembling this into a rose head. So we're going to start with the inner petals and rolling them quite tightly, gripping firmly at our first row right here. And as we're rolling, we can loosen up a little bit to resemble a real rose. Optionally, you can fasten this in place with stitch markers to make it easier to sew later on. Loosen this a little bit. Okay. And then once you have your petals where you want them, go ahead and fasten that in place as well with another stitch marker. And we're going to run our needle through the base of this a few times to secure everything in place. So flip the rows over, make sure it looks how you want it to look. And now we're going to begin sewing. So we're going to thread our needle. And we're going to start by whip stitching this outer petal to the rose just so that it doesn't go anywhere. And then we're going to start sewing through our base. Okay, so I'm just pulling up these loops so they're a little bit easier to capture. And we're going to just run it through the middle. So you want to go through where those chain spaces are. And just go all the way across. So just run it through several times, or as many times as you'd like. I'm just checking to make sure my needle is capturing all the way through. Okay, and once you're happy with the security and placement of your rows, you can go ahead and remove your stitch markers. And then you can go ahead and tie this off and trim any excess yarn as needed. So there we have it. So this is what our rose is going to sit on top of. To start this off, I'm going to create a chain 3 slip stitch. You could also do a magic ring, but I prefer not to in this case since blanket yarn tends to snap. And we are trying to create somewhat of a 3D effect with this, and it is best achieved using our chain 3 and slip stitch method. So that's chain 3, and we're going to slip stitch into our first stitch. We're going to chain 1, and we're going to half double crochet into the center of this chain 3. And we're going to repeat that for a total of 6 times. And then we're going to slip stitch to our first chain here. And we're going to invert this chain 3 so that it sticks out. You can see it gives a little bit of a 3D effect. We're going to be creating 6 sepals. So we're going to start by slip stitching into our first stitch. Then we're going to chain 4. And we're going to slip stitch into the second chain from the hook right here. Then slip stitch 2 more times. And then slip stitch in our next stitch right here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, slip stitch, slip stitch down our chain, 2, and then slip stitch into our next stitch. So I'm going to fast forward through here. Okay, so now that we have our 6 sepals, we're going to cut the yarn and fasten off real quick. So there we go, and I'm just going to fasten it off by weaving it through the middle, then tying a little knot. We're going to glue this in. So that is our finished sepal, measuring about 3.5 inches across. And now we're going to create our rose leaf. So I'm going to use the same yarn, and I'm going to grab some 22 gauge floral wire and cut about 7 inches. You should probably use wire cutters, but I don't have them on me, so I'm just going to do this real quick. So yeah, you can break it with friction. We're going to chain 6. So first form a slip knot. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So we have our chain 6. We're going to take our floral wire and insert it into the first chain from our hook. So this is the loop that's attached to our hook, and this is where we're going to insert our floral wire. So carefully like this, and then right next to where we inserted our floral wire, we're going to half double crochet into the second chain from the hook. So this is 1, and this here is 2. So I'm going to yarn over, insert my hook into this loop, making sure to go under where my wire is. Okay, yarn over again, pull it through, and then yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. So that forms a pretty secure attachment to the floral wire. So next to our half double crochet, we're going to go into the next stitch and double crochet. Then we're going to treble crochet into the next stitch. Double crochet. And then we're going to chain 1 and slip stitch into our last chain. So at this point we want to adjust our work so that our wire is flush with our top of the work, Now what we're going to do next is we're going to rotate and turn our work to the other side. We're going to insert our hook through this loop and under the folded part of the second part of our loop, and we're going to slip stitch. And then next we're going to be working all of what we did on this side in reverse order. So after our slip stitch, we're going to chain 1, and then into our next stitch, we're going to double crochet. So see where we just slip stitched? We're going to go into the stitch next to it to double crochet. And then we're going to treble crochet. We're also working over our previous yarn tail to secure that in place. Then double crochet again. A half double crochet and a slip stitch into our last stitch. So half double crochet, and then into that same stitch where the half double crochet went into, we're going to slip stitch. And then we're going to take our active loop and we're going to thread it over our loose wires and then pull it tight. We're going to adjust our wires so that this is flush with the top of our work. And then to finish off our leaf, we're going to wrap it for about maybe 1/4 of an inch. And then we're going to start wrapping in kind of a figure 8 formation, so like this. And then we can twist the 2 ends of our wire closed. And once you've sufficiently twisted it, you can go ahead and take your scissors and cut off the yarn, and the twisted wires should hold that yarn in place. Grab my scissors, just take a small snip right here. So that here is our finished leaf. Okay, now that we have all our parts finished, what we'll need to grab is our hot glue gun, some pliers, and a finished rosebud, 1 or more leaves, and a calyx. Okay, so we're gonna start by bending the top of our wire to create a little hook. This will help us secure our rose in place. You can skip this step and apply more glue if you'd like. We're going to now apply hot glue to the top part of this. And then we're going to apply hot glue to the top of our calyx. Add our calyx. Thread our calyx through that, like so. At the base of our calyx, we're going to apply more hot glue. Wrap our yarn carefully around this wire. So that's about 4 inches. We're going to add our leaf. So I'm just going to go ahead and line this up parallel. And then I'm going to apply a tiny bit of hot glue for extra security. So when you reach the end of your stem, go ahead and apply a little bit more hot glue to that tip right there. And then you're going to cover that up with your yarn that you're wrapping it with. And then you can go ahead and cut the yarn and it should stay in place because of the glue. So there we have it, a finished rose.
If you made some fluffy roses along with me, congratulations! Now you have some pretty flowers to decorate your home or give to a loved one. I'd love to see what you made, so please take a picture or video, and if you're on Instagram, TikTok, or YouTube, please tag me at notfastfashion when you post about it, or you can send it to me at notfastfashion@gmail.com. I'd love to share your work to my platforms to motivate other people to create their own fluffy roses as well. If you like this tutorial, then please click subscribe and the notification bell. I do plan to make more tutorials and patterns and designs like this one. If you have anything specific that you'd like to see from me in the future, then please comment down below, or if you have any questions or concerns. Otherwise, have a wonderful day.